Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I am finally back with another episode of Team Review Thursday. Some of you guys may remember this weekly series I started ago, where you guys submit your teams to me, and every week I edit and analyze one of them in front of all of you. Well, it's finally back. I know I've been pretty busy in terms of missing out on uploads for all the additional non-Road to Ranked series, and I'm really sorry about that. Things just got really hectic towards the end of high school, but I'm actually graduating in 3 weeks, and things have finally kind of died down a bit, so I'm looking to start up everything that I originally had planned for this channel in terms of additional content other than Road to Ranked. So, we do have this on Thursday. There will be an individual Pokemon analysis coming out on Hydreigon actually this Saturday. I'm also looking to get a team analysis out on Sunday, and I'd like to hear your feedback on which teams on Road to Ranked you'd like to see an analysis on the most. And then Trainer Tip Tuesday should be back next Tuesday. So looking forward to getting back on track with everything, and this should be a pretty exciting episode since I'm a huge fan of the team for today. And this is a newer series as well, so I'd still really appreciate any feedback, criticism, comments you have on the series, and if you could show your support by leaving a like on the video, I would also really appreciate it, because I really want to know how much interest people have in the additional series that I have on this channel. Anyway, let's finally get to today's episode. So this team was submitted to me by someone called Connor Lee, and when I saw it, I immediately fell in love with it, because if you guys followed me in VGC 2014 at all, I used Gothitelle at the World Championships this past summer. I was one of the players. Sejong Park actually won with Gothitelle. A bunch of other notable players such as Wolfie, Glick, and Billa used it as well, so it's a really strong Pokemon, and towards the end of the VGC 2014 season, I actually won a regional championship with it and got 4th at Texas with it. So I'm a huge fan of Gothitelle, and when I saw it on his team, I was like, okay, this is probably the team I want to review for the week. He's also got a bunch of Pokemon that are near and dear to me, especially that Mega Venusaur and Scizor. Heatran I've used a bunch this year. Azumarill was actually a Pokemon I was testing alongside Gothitelle when I was testing for the 2014 World Championships, so it's a really exciting team. As always, I'm just going to go over the team and then make suggestions. So first one is Gothitelle, and this one isn't your standard in terms of speed control. He actually doesn't have speed control. Runs Helping Hand, Heal Pulse, Side Shock, and Protect. A pretty bulky spread here, max HP just to maximize that. 100 defense, 156 special defense with Calm. Shadow Tag, and Citrus Berry. So Citrus Berry over something like Leftovers or Chesto Berry, which I actually used at Worlds with Rest. Next one is the Heatran, which I've also used, and it's actually missing 4 EVs, which should be an HP, but, just max special attack and speed with Leftovers, Sub, Earth Power, Heat Wave, and Protect. So, get max damage output, but you're still relatively bulky because of the decent natural bulk Heatran has. This next one is the Mega Venusaur, that you guys probably are pretty familiar with at this point. It's actually a bit different from mine, given that it's calm and not bold, so really easy to survive those special attacks now that Psychic-type Pokemon, especially, Psychic-type attacks like Cresselia, Psychic/Side Shock, are picking up in popularity. Otherwise, typical moveset of Giga Drain, Sludge Bomb, Seed. Next one is Timid Specs Hydreigon. This one is actually Draco Meteor, Dark Pulse, Earth Power, and Focus Blast. So the last move tends to be filler. And Connor here decided to go with Focus Blast, probably to hit Pokemon like Tyranitar for super effective and actually picking up knockouts. Obviously, accuracy kind of shaky, but otherwise, relatively standard specs Hydreigon. This next one is actually Assault Vest Azumarill, which is not exactly the most common Azumarill set in VGC. His EV spread also doesn't seem to be fully optimized, but I do like Azumarill a lot on this team. Having tested Azumarill and Gothitelle myself, it's a really strong combination. He's running a moveset of Aqua Jet, Superpower, Waterfall, and Play Rough, which makes sense given the Assault Vest. You can't run setup moves like Belly Drum, and you also can't run Protect, so to fill those up, normally you see Play Rough and Aqua Jet, and then Superpower and Waterfall is the last two. And I actually like Superpower a lot because it allows you to hit Pokemon like Kangaskhan and Tyranitar. Though I guess you could Play Rough Tyranitar too, though Superpower is knockout there. And then we've got Scizor, which is a Pokemon I am very, very much a fan of, given that I used it in almost all of VGC 2012 and 2013. This one's actually Life Orb with Technician, Bug Bite, Bullet Punch, Protect, and Faint. I'm more of a fan of the Swords Dance set. Back in 2012 and 2013, you had Bug or Steel Gem. Now, typically maybe with Lumberry, but the Life Orb actually makes a lot of sense on this Scizor. He's just got max attack and max speed in terms of EVs. So, in general, it's a really, really awesome team. I think, it's got a mix of really good bulk and offense, and it's just powerful. In general, you can see that none of these Pokemon are too fast, and because they tend to lie on the, I'm kind of bulky, but I'm also kind of offensive kind of spectrum. No really frail Pokemon, like Gengar, which is one of the faster, or Terrakion. Those are the ones that are typically a bit faster, but not as bulky. So, for suggestions, I think one of the things that immediately stuck out to me, especially when I played a couple practice games with this team, is lack of speed control on Gothitelle. Now, I really, really like Heal Pulse on Gothitelle, but given my previous experience, you know, I brought it to the World Championships, and I had Heal Pulse on mine, and I used Heal Pulse maybe once in the entire tournament, and that's out of 6 best of 3 rounds. Also, when testing it, never really came into much use. Like, Heal Pulse is one of those moves, and I actually know Wolfie Glick used it on his, and he actually made it to Worlds through the LCQ because of it, but it's one of those moves that's really, really situational. Like, maybe you can use it 1 out of 10 games, and maybe it'll win you that 1 game, but the other 9 games really won't be doing too much. So if I could actually make a suggestion for this team, I would probably replace it for either Thunder Wave or Trick Room, and I'm actually leaning towards Thunder Wave for this specific team, and that's because you see, the team is not exactly a Trick Room team. Everything's still relatively speedy, and these are all Pokemon that, if you look at their speeds, you know, do decently. If you get a Thunder Wave off, they basically outspeed anything. So that's why I lean towards Thunder Wave here instead of Trick Room, just because, you know, I do like the speed aspect of this team, and I think that's something you shouldn't give up. And, you know, World Champion Sejong Park used Thunder Wave on his Gothitelle. He also used excuse me. I think he did use Psyshock, but the more important thing was he used Tickle. Now, I don't think Tickle's actually very good on this Gothitelle, since that kind of revolves around a Mega Evolution that's a physical type attacker, and you see the Mega Evolution here is Venusaur. So I think Thunder Wave makes a lot of sense. It allows you to outspeed Pokemon like Kangaskhan, which when I was testing was one of the biggest issues I had. So that was probably the immediate suggestion I would make. EV spread looks alright here. You know, Gothitelles back in VGC 2014, mine and Wolfie's, for example, actually just had 252 HP, 244 special defense to always survive Specs Hydreigon's Dark Pulse, but Specs Hydreigon really not that common anymore, so not incredibly necessary, and I do think defense is also essential to survive Kangaskhan's attack, so with the Citrus Berry, I think it's pretty good. Now, the second suggestion I would make is actually a Pokemon suggestion. So while I'm a huge fan of Heatran in general, I actually think a better Pokemon to fulfill that bulky fire role is Arcanine, and you know, I actually haven't used Arcanine on Road to Ranked, and it could be an outlandish suggestion, but in my opinion, I think it fits with this team so nicely. And this is actually a set that was used by Adit, also known as, I forgot how to pronounce his name, but he recently published a report on Nugget Bridge. I think he actually got it from another good VGC player. But, you know, Arcanine is really strong, and this was the set like he used. So he had max HP, 196 defense, and bold nature, so you can see this is really defensively built, and the last 60 in speed actually allows it to outspeed Bisharp, which is another important thing I want to touch on, because Bisharp was a huge issue with this team. So, you know, he used Rocky Helmet, which I think makes a lot of sense on this one, Intimidate, and then a moveset of Flamethrower, Will-O-Wisp, Snarl, and the last one was Protect. So, why Arcanine here over Heatran? Well, first of all, I think Mega Kangaskhan itself is very problematic if you're using this team. If you see the Heatran there, a Mega Kangaskhan with low kick paired with a very strong partner can actually kind of just sweep through the entire team. When I was actually playing a practice game on Showdown, you know, trying to figure out the team's weaknesses, Kangaskhan Talonflame kind of just swept me. And, you know, Venusaur is a fantastic Mega Evolution, but it really does not do well against Talonflame. So that's why I thought to myself, you know, I probably want an Intimidator on this team, and I probably also want something that can shut down Kangaskhan. So now we've got Arcanine with Will-O-Wisp and Gothitelle with Thunder Wave, so you can imagine I could Thunder Wave it, and then these Pokemon actually do decently against the Kangaskhan. Without the Thunder Wave, Kangaskhan can actually just low kick knockout Hydreigon, double edge knockout Azumarill. You know, Venusaur, it does decently well against, but the thing is, Kangaskhan's typically going to be paired with a partner, and the main issue is it's not Kangaskhan by itself, but Kangaskhan and its partner. So I think by putting Arcanine on this team, it makes a lot of sense, because you get the Intimidate off, you get a really defensive, bulky fire type that's still somewhat offensive. You know, obviously not nearly as strong as Heatran because it's more bulkier. Though, you know, one thing you could also do here is instead of running Flamethrower, run something like Heat Wave, because you do have the Helping Hand boost from Gothitelle. You could also reconsider Snarl as the last move. Maybe something like Close Combat, so you're not completely walled by Heatran. Though Snarl actually does decrease its special attack, which can go a long way. Morning Sun could actually be kind of fun here as well, but I don't know, it really comes down to what you want to do. Substitute here could actually fulfill that role that Heatran earlier had with that Substitute as well. You can imagine with Substitute and Will-O-Wisp and Gothitelle, they're kind of locked in. They can't really do very much. You burn them and you get the damage off. So it's a situational last move. I would probably run something like Morning Sun, Substitute, or Snarl. Those are the 3 moves probably I'd consider. Maybe something even like Extreme Speed though, because that priority can be really good. And you know, Flamethrower and Heat Wave is also a situational thing. Flamethrower obviously gets a bit more damage off, but Heat Wave just puts on a lot of more pressure with Gothitelle and spread attack. So this is actually probably something I would run over the Heatran. Probably the biggest change I would make to the team. Venusaur looks alright here. When Connor sent me the team. He actually didn't specify what the EV spread did, but it looks pretty alright. I'm guessing he has a good reason for it, and it just looks like a very solid Venusaur. Calm makes a bit more sense here now on Gothitelle and Venusaur now that we have an Intimidator, and this one is bold, so I do like the Arcanine here a lot on the team. Hydreigon here, now I would actually probably run Life Orb on this one. So I think Hydreigon's really strong, but Choice Specs limits you in the sense that if you lead with Hydreigon, your opponent leads with something that outspeeds you, for example Kangaskhan or Landorus T, you're basically forced to switch out, and that's not an option I like very much. I like being able to at least protect that first turn and stall your opponent out. So I know we've got Life Orb on Scizor, and this is something Connor might want to consider, but in my personal preference, I'd probably actually run Life Orb with Levitate, Draco, Dark Pulse, Earth Power, and probably Protect as my last one. Now for the EV spread, it's also not completely necessary to go with max speed and max special attack. For simplicity's sake, honestly, you could do that. Hydreigon's not one of those Pokemon that really needs a complicated EV spreads, especially nowadays when it just doesn't really need to, survive the Garchomp Dragon Claw, which people typically use in the past. And so with max speed and max special attack, it actually ensures that you outspeed you outspeed other opposing Hydreigons, which might be bulkier or tend to run Modest or whatnot. So I do like that, and Timid helps out too because you've got that Helping Hand, and I think Helping Hand is such a good move on this team. For the Azumarill, I would probably not run Assault Vest with something like this. I might maybe consider Lumberry. Actually, my personal preference, and one reason why I wanted Life Orb on Hydreigon was because I would personally suggest Choice Band. And I know I'm changing this team a fair amount, so obviously Connor or whoever's watching this, these are all changes that I would make personally to fit my playstyle. I would definitely go with Huge Power, obviously, and stick with the moveset. Now, I don't exactly have the best EV spread for Azumarill, but I think 252 4 works here, especially with the Thunder Wave on Gothitelle. You'd imagine you would want to bring in Azumarill after getting a Paralysis off, or shutting down your opponent with Will-O-Wisp here, or even Snarls. So the ideal time to bring Azumarill is after you kind of shut them down with Arcanine or even Venusaur. And the reason why I would go for Choice Band over Assault Vest is because Assault Vest isn't really helping you out too much. Choice Band maximizes your damage output, and Choice Band Azumarill does so much damage. You could imagine a superpower actually can knock out a Kangaskhan, and that's huge. That's something a lot of players don't expect, and that does improve the Kangaskhan matchup, in my opinion, a significant amount. So I would personally go with that, just because with Assault Vest, you don't get too much damage output. You can also get burned, and obviously you can still get burned with this Azumarill, but even with the burn, you still get decent damage off. And personally, I've tried Choice Band Azumarill, and it's really strong, and I think it makes sense. You don't want two choice users. That's why I opted for the Life Orb on Hydra, and then putting the band on Azumarill. And of course, you could still stick with the Assault Vest, but I've tried out Assault Vest Azumarill in the past. Not exactly my favorite set. For the last one, obviously, because we've got the Life Orb now on Hydreigon, you do have to get rid of the item here on Scizor. I'd probably go with something like a Lumberry, just because, people like to burn it a lot. You still get nice damage output off, and that way, you can take a Will-O-Wisp, you can get a Bug Bite off, maybe against a Pokemon like Rotom Wash, take their Citrus Berry, and actually just knock them out the following turn. For the moveset, it's really between Feint and Swords Dance, and I actually tried out Feint, and I think it's a pretty good move, so it comes down to personal preference. And, once again, for a player like me that's used Scizor in the past, I would lean towards Swords Dance, but Feint definitely makes a lot of sense on this team as well. So I do like the Lump Scizor set, and this is just catering it to something that I would personally use, and I like a lot. So now, you've got this bulky Gothitelle with Thunder Wave instead of the Heal Pulse, and Thunder Wave you can almost use in basically any game, unless you're going against a Trick Room team. Now you've got a bulkier Arcanine, which can really shut down opponents by both the special spectrum with Snarl and the physical spectrum. Heat Wave for damage output, though Flamethrower definitely works. And now you outspeed Bisharp as well, so there's, you can lead Arcanine against a Bisharp with relative confidence, because you can just burn it immediately, and its attack actually ends up being decreased. So I know that's one thing that Gothitelle players might not like going up against, but that does help out a decent amount. Mega Venusaur, not much really needed to be changed. EV spread could be a personal preference, but looks good. And, Life Orb on Hydreigon now allows you to lead something like Hydreigon Gothitelle and actually go for the Protect on Hydreigon and Thunder Wave on Gothitelle. So the following turn, you can actually outspeed and knock out things. For example, potential play you could make is Fake Out with Hydreigon the first turn against a Kangaskhan, or Protect, excuse me, as they try to fake you out. You paralyze them, and then the following turn, go for a Helping Hand Draco to knock it out immediately. Of course, very specific kind of thing there, but those are the scenarios you want to play around, and it gives you more options. And thus, by putting CB or Choice Band on Azumarill, allows you to pick up one-hit KOs with these really powerful attacks. Even a Choice Band Aqua Jet does so much damage. And then finally, to wrap the things up, Scizor here, still really good. I think a Steel type is essential. We did have one on Heatran, but we did replace it for Arcanine, so that's why I did want to keep Scizor. Swords Dance, something I would opt for. You'd also take out EVs from speed and put them into HP. depending on how you want to play here. But this is, you know, the first kind of edit I would make to the team, and there are a bunch of suggestions, but the kind of core idea is still here. And, you know, for Connor, if you're watching this video, definitely feel free to go with the sets you had. This is something I would just use personally, but I still think Specs is really good on Hydreigon, Life Orb's really good on Scizor. Azumarill, I wouldn't consider really Assault Vest as much, maybe something like Lumberry with Protect, just because that way, you know, people often like to burn Azumarill, and I just feel like with the Assault Vest, when I tried it out, it wasn't really helping me out that much with special attacks, since if I'm going against Pokemon with special attacks, I'm going to use other Pokemon that can beat it. For example, Scizor to beat Sylveon, or something like Hydreigon, Venusaur to beat the electric type attacks. But yeah, I mean, I'm a huge fan of this team. I'm actually maybe going to try it out on Road to Rank next week, because Gothitelle was so fun. But I hope you guys enjoyed this episode of Team Review Thursday. Shout out to Connor for giving me a really awesome team. I was a huge fan of it, and, you know, I hope these suggestions helped. Anyway, that's going to be it for this episode of Team Review Thursday, guys. I had a lot of fun reviewing the team, and I hope you guys had as much fun watching it. Go check out Road to Rank if you have not already, and yeah, that's going to be it for this one, guys. See you next time. Peace.